Microphone test, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yep, that works. I can hear you. Is there a reason that you're not wanting to join as a panelist?
Not necessarily. I was just trying to, says to sign in and I don't have a,
Oh,
uh,
really? Oh,
yeah,
okay, yeah,
I don't have
I
a
thought
password, I
I
don't think.
kind of deactivated that. Okay, well, that's cool. I mean, this is a new function that I'm able to use to unmute attendees, just without some other designation. Or anyways, this works too, I guess. I'll just,
Yeah, if I,
change.
I just pressing some buttons to not have to physically sign in. That's the first time I've ever had to actively sign in.
Okay, yeah, I'll double check that. Thank you.
All right, everybody, it is 12 o'clock. We'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. This is the Fast Planning Technical Committee meeting, this is Wednesday, November 6th. And it is 12 o'clock. For committee members, I see present today, I see we have Nick Zarnecki, Andrew Reynolds, sitting in for Kate Duber, Brett Nelson, Don Curtis, Walker Ringstad, Bill Rogers, Alan Spillman, and Jacob Toyer. Committee members that I do not see present today, including Michael Bradley, Justin Burgess, Michelle Denton, Alexa Green, Lieutenant Mike Roberts, RJ Stump, and John Weinberger. Any of those folks are in the meeting. I just have missed it. Will you announce your presence? Okay, that's what we have with us today. We do have quorum. For Fast Planning staff, we have myself, Jackson Fox, Olivia Bunsford, Courtney Ricciardiano, Deborah Todd. And then for guests in the meetings today, I see we have with us Don Galligan, Jack Farnwell, Jack Trocco, Cody Luthi, Juan Lee, and Marie Heidemann. We have one other guest in the meeting.
Stacia.
Oh, Stacia. Okay, wonderful. Stacia Hiles. All right, is there anyone else in the meeting today that would like to be noted for the record? The other attendees I missed.
Yeah, hi Jackson, this is Bryant. I'm on the phone. Bryant Wright from R&M. I should be able to switch over to virtual here in just a minute, but I'm on the phone for now.
Okay. Sound good. Thanks, Brian. All right, let's move on to approval of the November 6th, 2024 meeting agenda. Can I get a motion on the agenda? So moved. Thank you, Bob. Is there a second? Brett? Any changes to today's agenda? It's a long one today. And just for the record, Colin Hodges and Al Beck have joined us.
This is Michelle Denton. I'm on the line too.
Oh, okay. Thanks for joining us, Michelle. All right, I'm not hearing any changes to today's agenda, so anyone opposed to approval of the agenda as presented? Hearing none, consider approved. That takes us to approval of the October 2nd, 2024 meeting minutes, which are included on pages 2 through 5 of the packet. Can I get a motion on the minutes? Walker? Is there a second? Second. Bob? Any edits to the minutes? Not hearing any edits. Anyone opposed to approval of the meeting minutes as presented in the packet? Hearing none, we'll consider those approved. That takes us to staff working group and share report, which begins on page 6 in your packet. I do have a number of attachments for the staff report. I'm not going to go through all of these attachments with the technical committee. Most of these are just kind of FYI for committee members with regard to correspondence between DOT and the Federal Highway Administration and Federal Transit Administration, and the recent decision on the cheater flood control projects that has been removed from the STIP. And those bridges out there now have a new boat posted on them. That if you follow the Newsmeyer articles the past week or so, I've been bringing back up to speed on those topics. But I will go over the first two items here, the policy board action items from October 10th. And that's on page 7, the back of the very next page. There were 2 action items before them. On October 10th, they did approve the scope of work, the Metropolitan Transportation Plan update, and that has been provided to DOT to prepare a request for proposals to get that advertised for consultants to propose on. We did have a lengthy discussion at the policy board meeting about not having an approved metropolitan plan area boundary from DOT. and, the issue of doing work on that planning effort, in areas, the newly served areas of our boundary that we will not be able to charge our staff time or consultant time, on that kind of, not really a donut hole, but those newly served areas. So the policy board decided to ask DOT to cover the cost of the work that's outside our current boundary, but within the new, boundary that the governor has not yet approved. That was their action item. I'm sorry, the motion that was approved. They also approved release of the draft, electric vehicle infrastructure implementation plan for Fairbanks Pole. That comment period started on October 13th and will run through November 12th. We do have that on the agenda today to give you, a little bit bigger update on that. And then, beginning on page 8, this is the second item I want to highlight. The EPA has provided, a letter to fast planning notifying us that we have transportation conformity requirements have ended for the carbon monoxide maintenance area. We have been in attainment for over 20 years with respect to national air quality standards for carbon monoxide, and have been operating underneath a maintenance plan that was prepared by the state. I believe we've had no violations of that for the past 20 years, and so now we won't have to factor in carbon monoxide pollutants into our air quality conformity. Just be focusing on PM2.5 pollutants from this point forward. So that's it's big positive news for our organization. And then the last thing I want to highlight is page 57. My staff report. We did receive one written public comment from E.D. Reinish with regard to College Road and sidewalk snow removal. And he did want this comment to be provided to the technical committee and policy board for the public comment period, which will open up next. But I just wanted to bring that to your attention, that this was requested to be given to the committee and the board. All right, I will stop there and see if there's any questions regarding the items that have been included in the packet for my staff report.
So we're gonna hear John Weinberger.
Okay, John Weinberger has joined us for the record. Thank you, Olivia. All right, I'm not hearing any comments or questions. And we do have a long agenda, so let's move on to our public comment period. So remember the public who wishes to provide testimony here today. I don't think we have any in the room at this time, but online.
Please raise your hand. We can't. We're in webinar format now due to some Zoom bombing issues we've been having. So if you are a member of the public who wishes to provide public comment, please just raise your hand or in the chat. We'll happily wait about a minute just to keep an eye out for anybody, and then I can unmute you and you may proceed.
Okay, doesn't look like we have any public comment online at this time, so we'll go ahead and close the public comment period and move on to old business. The Max Transit Plan update and coordinated human services transportation plan, which begins on page 58 in your packet. In a moment here, I'll turn it over to Corey, the consultant team that's been working on the transit plan updates. But just want to note, as far as what's being requested of the committee here today, the public comment period did close on October 20th, 2024. A total of 62 comments were received. Corey and the consultant team today will be sharing those comments with you all, as well as the proposed revisions to these two plans. The revisions are still in progress on the consultant's side to polish up that document. We do anticipate having that final polished revised plan to present to our policy board later this month. But at this time, the action requested by the committee is to take a look at the planned revisions to the transit plan updates, and if there's no objections or further change from the committee, we'll advance this plan to the policy board for adoption at the November 20th meeting. There are 2 attachments in the packet. One is the collated plan revisions in response to the public comments received. And then the second attachment is the actual public comments and responses for all 62 comments that were received. So with that, I'll turn it over to Corey to walk you through.
Great.
The plan revisions.
Thanks, Jackson. I'm also joined with Brian Wright with Arnhem Consultancy in Fairbanks and Colin Hodges with Alta Planning. They're both integral in this process. So I'll go ahead and give an overview, and then we'll give them a chance to kind of raise their hand and comment as well. And Olivia can take care of the background unmuting. So as Jackson mentioned, this was our 30-day public comment period. We kicked it off with an open house at Norween Library on the 18th. We had over 50 people attend that and provide comments on everything from route changes to how they should, advertise for addressing some of the issues like driver shortages. There was a lot of good discussion. That event went on for over, was it 2 hours? 2 hours about in the evening. And then a couple days later, we formally opened up the public comment period. Per our public participation plan, which is on our website, we had flyers on buses, we put sandwich boards out, we had advertisements on radio and also in the newspapers. So we kind of went through our formal process there, and then also did several ride-alongs on the buses to advertise directly to riders. We had flyers on buses as well. So the comments that we received, if you just scroll ahead a couple of pages, there's a full table there that begins on page 64. Those are essentially the breakdown of every comment that we got, the name of the source, and then the intended or recommended changes to either the transit plan or the coordinated human services transportation plan. So some comments bridged both of those, some were targeted to one or the other. We've been going through and tweaking the document as was necessary, and then we have the recommended changes, which are page 59 to 63. So that kind of gives you the breadth of everything that was commented on with the document. Largely the comments, I think, were all very positive, and we're appreciative of the efforts. There were some critical ones, which were also great and helped identify holes. But on total, I think this was a great effort, and we got really good feedback from everyone, the members of the public, to drivers with Max, to other, agency folks that participated. Brian or Colin, do you have anything to add to that summary, or would you like to chime in?
Yeah, thanks, Corey. Hey, Brian here. Can you guys hear me all right?
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, yeah. I think I just want to add that in that column there, that you guys are looking there where the recommended changes are, if there was no change, and you can probably tell this by looking at the comment, it's usually because the comment was already consistent with some of the recommendations that were already in the plan. So where we felt like a change was needed, maybe where we identified that public comment had shown a gap in the plan's language, something that wasn't considered or documented as well as we'd like in the recommendations. So that's where the changes are. But just want you to know that when there's no change suggested in there, it's not because we didn't feel like changing something. It's just because typically they were already consistent with what's recommended in the plan. Thanks.
Olivia, you could go back to page 59. This shows more or less the groupings. We went through and aggregated all 62 comments and combined them into the categories. So we have on the far left column there, the comments regarding the yellow line, and then the proposed changes to that. A lot of it is just clarifying language. The yellow line received a large percentage of comments because it was essentially proposed to become more of a connection between the airport and downtown and less of a meandering route through UAF, West Fairbanks, the airport, and then other transfer points. So a lot of folks at UAF were concerned about the loss of direct access from the essentially University West neighborhood to campus. So we had some clarifying language there about frequency and that if changes to the line happen, it's in conjunction with other ones. But it is a consideration for the future is these near campus locations that have large student populations and how they get to campus. Other questions, if we go to the next page, were about the red line and blue line in sequence. One of the big proposed changes for routing in the future would be to make the red and blue line bi-directional, which means that they wouldn't deviate as heavily as they do. The areas where they deviate tend to be along Airport Way where you have controlled access roads where a route deviates up to Pioneer Park and another one goes south to Alaska Behavioral Health. You know, obviously there's a lot of concerns about losing access to those. So again, we kind of described this in that frequency changes would be made. Something like this may not be fully attainable unless Airport Way underwent some geometric changes, some of which were proposed in the Airport Way corridor study from, how long ago was that? About 10 years now?
The original one was 2007, but those are functional features analysis that was done a little more recently, maybe 10 years ago.
Yep. So some of these recommendations actually tie to changes within the transportation network that are have already, you know, got reports or analyses. The Geist Road is another one that was looked at as bi-directional, but currently doesn't make sense because the north side of Geist Road is a fenced off controlled access treatment. So we responded to these folks and have also added additional language to explain how this would or wouldn't happen. And then the subsequent pages show more about clarifying maps, maintenance and funding, basically adding clarifying language about funding sources and then some, yeah, clerical adjustments that folks found typos in a few locations. And that concludes it. So yeah, as Jackson mentioned, for consideration would be promoting this and to the policy board for adoption.
All right, any questions for staff at this time on this action item? Okay, don't see any questions at this time, so we'll go ahead and open this up for public comments. Is there any member of the public who wishes to provide testimony on this action item here today? Or the entertaining meeting? No one in the room. Okay, we'll go ahead and close the public comment period then. And now I am looking for a motion from the technical committee on this action item. Recommend a motion. One has to utilize this one, but I could recommend that the technical committee recommend to the policy board to adopt the transit plan updates and consideration of the revisions being made in response to the public comments received.
This is Michelle, so moved.
Michelle, is there a second? Second. Thank you, Bob. Okay. Questions, comments, discussion, debate? Members?
I had one question. I was looking through the comments and it appears like maybe the last 34 of the comments, 32 of the comments are all from anonymous. They seem to be formatted similarly. Do you know if all those are from a single person?
No, those are all aggregated. If anonymous is there, it's because it was a sticky note that someone put up on the wall. So they didn't, you know, there was no tracking of like writing their name. Some people did elect and write their name and their email address on the note that they posted, but a lot of it was sort of like a you know, large format, maps and things like that. So folks were just sort of making quick comments and adding to it. So anonymous, yeah, isn't a single person going wild. I think that's
I understand, thank you. I mean, the intention is to have the policy board act on this later this month.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
All right, further questions, comments? Discussion points? Okay. Not hearing any at this time.
Sorry,
Yeah, go ahead.
one last question.
Yep.
Corey, you mentioned, the edits are kind of still in progress. Is the hopes to have a final document for policy board?
Yeah, so we'll have that included in the final packet.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I guess at this time, I'm just gonna ask if there's any objection to the motion on the table at this time, the many committee members. Okay, here none, we'll consider the motion approved. That takes to item 7B underneath old business, the Fairbanks North Pole Electric Vehicle Infrastructure Implementation Plan, which begins on page 80 in your packet. There's really no action from the committee here today on this item since we're in the middle of our public comment period. Again, the comment period opened up on October 13th and will run through November 12th, so through next week. Tonight, there will be a tabling event on this draft plan at Blacksburg's Brewing. And then tomorrow night, there will be a full-blown open house event at the Morris Thompson Cultural and Visitor Center from 5 to 7 p.m. And included in this section of your packet, we just showed you the advertisements for the 30-day public comment period. And then the flyers for the public comment period that have been distributed throughout town, as well as the flyer for the open house event, which will again occur tomorrow night at the Morris Thompson Cultural and Visitor Center. And then just to give you all a preview of the written comments that we've received to date, kind of in similar format to the transit plan updates. I've included those on pages 84 through 88. We have not yet developed responses to these comments. I think included in the packet, there's 11 total here. We did receive one other comment yesterday, so now we're at 12. But in this kind of final push for the last week of the comment period, I think we'll be getting more. We should be getting comments from the tabling event tonight and the open house tomorrow. So next month, this will come back for you. Kind of in similar format, we'll show you all the comments received, all the responses to those comments, and what plan changes will be proposed. We may even have a polished document by next month to share with the technical committee and also for consideration and adoption. So that's just my brief update. I'll stop there and see if there's any questions from committee members on the status of the electric vehicle plan. All right, not seeing any at this time. So let's move on to new business, item 8A, the Alaska DOT 2025 Safety and Performance Measurement Targets, which begins on page 89 in your packet. This is an action item for the committee today. Just to kind of refresh the technical committee, annually, the Alaska DOT is required to set safety targets and deliver those to the Federal Highway Administration there's 5 targets, one for fatalities, fatality rates, serious injury rate, and non-motorized fatalities and serious injuries. And so this is an item that comes to the technical committee and policy board each year as the state sets their targets based on a 5-year rolling average of the most recently available crash data. And the action for our the committee and the board is either to state your support the state's targets that they set for themselves, or to direct staff at our organization to begin working on establishing our own targets for our area. Earlier this summer, fall, we did provide the crash data for our metropolitan planning area to the technical committee. And, so that has been made available to you as of a couple months ago. But just to note that for the past 7 years, which is since 2018, technical committee and policy board have chosen each year to simply support the state's targets rather than establish our own for our planning period. And historically, that decision was based on the relatively low contribution of fatalities and serious injuries within our area to the statewide totals. So for example, Anchorage has a much higher fatality and serious injury rate here in Fairbanks and North Pole. And then also, if the state does not meet those targets, there is no penalty to our organization for funding. The only penalty would be to the state with restrictions on the flexibility of use of the highway safety improvement program funds. So it's not that they would lose money, but it reduces the flexibilities, meaning if you don't meet your targets, then you need to spend a portion of your money, focused on those specific areas that have fatalities and serious injuries. So the only consequence is really to DOT, not to us. Now behind this page here, so page 90 shows you the official or the email from DOT, which kind of starts the clock for us to make a decision. We have 180 days from August 31st, 2024 to either state or support the targets or establish our own. Page 91 shows you what the targets are that the state set. I will note that these targets are, and I'll show you kind of year to year, these targets are a bit lower. Or I should say, even another way to put it is a bit more stringent than in previous years. And Fast Planning staff did participate in the meetings with DOT as these targets were developed to be advanced to the Commissioner's Office for approval. So we did participate in the process, and our input was considered. But moving on to page 95, really what the decision was out of the group that was developing the safety targets was to try to sync up those safety targets with the goals of the statewide strategic highway safety plan, which is a reduction of in fatalities and serious injuries of 3.5% per year. And then page 96, the last page of this section of the packet, this shows you the safety targets that have been set over the past 7 years, and then the new targets that the state just adopted. So you can see going back to 2018 what those numbers are. And again, just want to note that the targets that were set for 2025 again represents lowering those targets and making those targets a bit more stringent for the state in coordination with the goals of the statewide strategic highway safety plan. And I will stop there and see if there's any questions for myself or DOT staff on the side of it. Yes, John.
Hey, thanks. Some questions. I think I ask the same question every year we deal with these. I was trying, just to preface this, I was trying to find, I know we had a briefing, I think it was this summer, on the actual crash data for the NPO area. I'm having a hard time finding that. I guess my question is, do we know how we're stacking up against these safety targets for our area?
I don't have the numbers handy in front of me. Included on page 89, there was a link, if you have the PDF open, to the Google map that Olivia created using the crash data for 2013 to 2022. So it's a 10-year span of data. And the technical committee also received an Excel sheet of all of those crashes. So we would have to look at that Excel sheet that maybe went to the committee in September or so to tease out the actual numbers of serious injuries and fatalities within our boundary. But we do have the data displayed in map format as well as in Excel. But I can't speak to the numbers right now without going back and taking a look at that.
Okay. So one kind of follow-up.
Yes.
one follow-up, for DOT. Sorry, trying to find the link here. These are pretty specific safety targets with fatalities, injury rate percentage, et cetera. Do we ever get this broken down for our area? What do you mean by our area? So we support these targets. And then do we ever get a report or anything saying, hey, here's what you actually did in the fast planning area or the borough or whatever geographic area we want to use?
Like to follow up on if the matter targets.
Yeah,
I don't know, but I can ask them and provide that if we do.
okay. This might, my comment is we accept these targets every year and kind of push them forward. And again, I just have no idea how we're doing. Are we double, are we triple, are we half? So it'd be good to just know that. It honestly seems like a little bit of an exercise in utility, just supporting these targets with not actually knowing anything about our area.
Page 94 in the packet. These are not the numbers for our area, but, these are the statewide numbers. That, again, that 5-year rolling average of fatalities and serious injuries. So statewide, you can see the data, but what I believe you're asking is you would like to see tables like this for just our metropolitan area to see how much of a relative contribution we make these statewide levels.
Correct, that'd be helpful, and then just even knowing we, again, have to act on this every year and
Yep.
just acting blindly that I guess we're doing okay, I don't really know.
Yes, Bob.
We don't adopt the state targets, we have to develop our own.
Correct. We have,
What would that involve developing our own?
so as Kellen described here, and it's shown on the screen at page 94, we would basically, the technical committee would be looking at tables like these for just our metropolitan planning area. You know, we may have like, say, 3 fatalities a year in our boundary, and we may have, 54 serious injuries, something like that. But we would look at those rolling averages and say, what do we want to shoot for? You could say 0. Vision 0 is no fatalities. That could be our target for our area. But then you would come up with an implementation plan. Well, how are you going to try to accomplish that with what actions?
Would that be done by a consultant?
No, I think this can be done internally. Yep, amongst the member organizations at the table. I think there's enough expertise.
That's extra work to do.
We could, yeah, with the data provided from DOT to us, I think that we could come up with our own targets if we so choose.
If we come up with targets and we don't meet them, is there a penalty to that?
No, there's still no penalty to those.
I think that might be right. It'd be nice to know if we're meeting local targets or what's happening with these targets based on actual accidents in our area.
Yep.
That'd be good to know. Then it might help us decide if we want to adopt the state target.
This item's not time critical. I mean, we can,
Yeah, I agree.
we have 180 days from the end of August, so. There could be a motion today to postpone this till next month so that you can see that data. It's, it's up to the committee. We're not on the time crunch here to either to make a decision here today if you don't want to.
Mr. Harris, do you know how long it would take to get this data for the fast planning area?
I would imagine we could have it by the next meeting. I can contact this expert work group here and, maybe even have someone come in next meeting and explain it to us better. as well.
I feel more comfortable with that. I know I bring this up every year and I'm kind of in the butt about it. But I think it would be good to just look at our area and then kind of blindly support something at a statewide level. I just have no idea how we're doing locally.
Right, but before we get into a promotion or anything here, again, this is time for questions, so if there's any questions before we. Any motion? Okay, not seeing any at this time, is there any public comment on this item today before we make a motion? There be anybody online? Okay, we'll close the public comment period. So at this time, I'll entertain a motion on agenda item 8A.
So I'd like to move to postpone the item 8A to the December meeting with hope of acquiring statistics for the fast plan area.
Okay, is there a second? Thanks, Bob.
This is Michelle.
Bob got it first. Thank you, Michelle.
No worries. Thank you.
Okay, discussion. Go ahead, Colin.
It's not my intention to delay anything. I appreciate the work DOT does. I know it's probably gonna be Nathan or Pam that comes in and talks about this. I think it would benefit kind of us as a technical committee to just give this a little scrutiny. I always feel uncomfortable supporting the statewide goals when I have no idea how we're doing.
Any other discussion? Okay, I'm not seeing any pushback on postponing this item, so I'm just gonna ask the technical committee if there's any objection to postponing this item to next month. Okay, I'm not seeing any objections, so we'll consider that motion approved. We'll take that up again in December. We'll now move on to item 8B, the fast improvement program, federal fiscal year 2025 construction projects. This begins on page 97 in your packet. This item is on the agenda here today because DOT, John Leonardis and his team are working on the plan set for the construction program for 2025. And that next year's program has approximately $1 million available for the pre-approved list by the technical committee policy board for project locations. However, looking at our transportation improvement program, we do have over $1 million of available unprogrammed funds that need to be devoted to a project in 2025. So the proposal that you're going to hear today is to add some additional locations to this construction program for next summer. And I'm going to turn it over to John and Stacia here soon to share with you all the proposal. But while we do have this additional funding available in federal fiscal year 2025, the technical committee should also weigh this decision with reserving some of those funds for any other increases on other projects that may be needed in the coming year. So included in your packet, page 98 shows you the current approved project lists for 2025 and 2026, as well as the bottom there, list of contingency projects, some of which John Nataris will show you is being proposed to be moved up to the 2025 category should additional funding be made available for this program. Page 99 shows you this program in our transportation improvement project. There's some use of advanced construction dollars here, so it's a little bit confusing. But what you're seeing here is that in 2025, there's there's $1 million available for construction. And then in 2026, there's about 1.1 million available for construction. Then on page 100, this shows you the currently available funds in our transportation improvement program. So with federal funds plus match, we have 1.3 million available that's not programmed to be project at this time or surface transportation program dollars. We also have about $600,000 of transportation alternative program dollars. And then one thing that's not shown here is that I'm hearing from DOT that potentially the Chino Riverwalk project may slide out from 25 out to 26. And so that would actually add to this total another 1.7 million, that we would have to program in another project. So, anyways, this is we'll have, John and Stacia here in a second, show you the proposal, which I emailed out to the group before this meeting. And we have hard copies here in the room for that. But it's just a consideration of adding some additional funding for that, doing more locations than what was previously approved. And so I'll turn it over to John now, and Olivia, you should have the PDFs of the handouts that were emailed out earlier.
Oh.
Should be in your inbox if we can't find them on our drive.
Or there's the Google TMC file. Or
While we're searching for that, I just want to make note that, even if this proposal or some amendment of this is, advanced in the technical committee for the policy board here today, there's still a secondary action to do an administrative modification, or an amendment to our transportation control program to add the additional funding later. So we need to have that direction from the committee and the board, before we move forward with that, administrative modification or amendment.
Were you hoping I would just open this in a Google now?
yeah, and Google Earth and just kind of pan around while we're talking.
Could I ask just a quick question? Yeah, so I have the handout, the red, are those all changes?
I'm gonna go over all that if,
Okay, sorry.
my turn?
Yes.
Okay, sure.
Or John?
Yeah, what you're looking at is a PDF with, red wording and numbers. And all the red that you see in there is gonna be changes from the policy board approved, list that's on the fast planning tip website. They approved that back in October. We approved it and then the policy board approved our list in October of 2023. So originally on the FAST program, 25 priorities, we had West Tanana Drive, 8th Avenue, Tesoro, East and West Ford, Chena Lake Rec Area, Chena Riverwalk. We had our list of contingency projects. I guess in the rules of this program, we've allowed those contingency projects to be moved around by myself, once approved. And so what I'll do is I'll tell you the list of changes up here and then a few of the minor changes that would actually need fast planning, technical and policy board approval to do. Cause some of them were minor tweaks, but, I kind of talked with Jackson a little bit about some of the tweaks made, but they would still need the approval. So I'll go through the list of what happened. So if you're looking at the 25 priorities, the 3 red ones at the bottom, North Pole High School Boulevard, Goyana State, Mitchell Expressway path, were all moved up from the contingency projects to the FAST 25 project. North Pole High School Boulevard was not originally a contingency project, and this is the one area where I would ask the committee to add it through an action in this committee. What happened was we had East and West 4th Avenue from the city of North Pole that we're gonna do minor repairs and repaving of. And then at the time, what's his name? Danny Wallace had asked, they went out and fixed West 4th Avenue and then asked if we could instead fix a small portion of North Pole High School Boulevard, which was about the same amount of money for the same kind of repair for a road that's actually used by a lot more folks. And there's a really big crack in the road, and we want to take out a section of that pavement and just repave it. Very, pretty minimal repair and very equitable to what we would have done on the other road for North Pole. So, if we could today, hopefully add that into my 25 project priorities, that would be great. If not, we'll just pull it out. I was in talks with Jackson. He said that it was around $2 million may be available if we vote on that. And so we have done enough work for the FAST 25 program to be up to, if you see the total down there, it's about $2 million with the selected contingency projects. So we've thrown the projects in there and got started on our environmental document and have been working on preliminary design for all this to equate to an amount that we expected to receive. Currently, the tip only has, I think, $1 million. So an action would be needed to bring that up to 2 million as well. And if we wanted to add any more of those other contingency projects in, like the Davis Road Path, Farmers Loop Road, or Andrea Drive, I think that could be done as well. If you look in the middle of our PDF document, you can see that the city of Fairbanks, Shiable Street is crossed out. That's because Bob and their team have already repaved that. So it's no longer gonna be a fast planning project. Then at the bottom, under contingency projects, we've done very basic or minimal work on 2 new ones to add to the contingency project list. Those are Old Airport Way and Summit Drive. We were asked to estimate those and provide them to Jackson Fox. So those are possible contingency projects in the future as well. I think I covered everything that I wanted to. We can pan around and look at the fiscal year 25 project priorities on a map if you want to see what's going on with them. Joy Estates, we did initially have the whole, I think we were planning on doing everything in there, but like the funding amount only limited it to the most important degraded portions of road, which are coming in the entrance and meeting up at the first 2 big intersections. And then lastly, the Tesoro Avenue loop was increased to include the entire loop, including Tesoro Avenue, St. Philomena, and Standard Avenue off of Lathrop Street. So I think it was just coming around the corner here a little bit, but now it's the whole loop. And I believe there's a whole new building there now.
Yeah, that's the Max Transit.
Max Transit Center.
Yep.
And I believe that was maybe quite you.
Mayor Ward and, yeah, all done.
All right, so that's all the updates on the fast planning project that I'm working on. What I can do without, I guess, the approval of this board is move in Goyan Estates and Mitchell Expressway path, but I can't do North Pole High School Boulevard for the addition of those these roads in this loop without you guys voting on it, as well as we need more money if we want to do all this stuff. If not, I can scale back the project back to $1 million, and we'd actually have to remove some of the priorities as well.
Thank you, John.
Yep.
All right, questions from committee members? Staff. Helen, go ahead.
So, so right now, it looks like we have 1.2 million in the tip for this program.
It's 1 million. The 2 is for design.
Oh,
$200,000 is for design,
Okay.
the 26 program.
okay, I understand. So the proposal is to up it by 979,000, essentially, correct?
Yes, sir. Or approximately $1 million, or whatever we end up deciding upon, if any.
And a follow-up, Jackson, did I hear you mention that money's coming from the Cheetah River Walk?
No. So currently we have 1.3 million of surface transportation program dollars that are not programmed to any project.
Okay,
The Chain River Walk is already fully funded for construction in 25, but my understanding is that that will likely slide out to 26. And so, okay, in addition to what we have on books right now, there might be an additional 1.7 million that becomes available, if that is the actual timeline of that project. So we have 1.9 million of unprogrammed funds that are tip right now for 25, and then an additional 1.7 million on top of that. We could have a whole of that being about $3.5 million hole. Okay, in our funding plan. So this was this is a proposal to utilize some of the unprogrammed funding, but not all of it.
I have a couple more follow-ups.
Yes, no, go ahead.
So essentially, well, let me ask my first question first. adding projects to the improvement program doesn't throw anything off with the conformity freeze, does it?
No, the fast improvement program is, it's also considered a preventative maintenance program. And so it meets the exemptions underneath, it's 40 CFR 93.126.
Okay,
So these are all projects that are, resurfacing or striping or signing, they're all maintenance projects that are considered exempt. So adding money to this program, we can do that underneath an amendment, without, having to worry about the.
okay. And then my last follow-up, there's not another larger project such as Main Street or Cowles that would be shovel ready to take any of this money?
No, so Cowell Street will go out to bid here soon. That's our plan. If the bids come back high on that, we may need to, devote some money from our tip to award that contract.
Okay. And then I guess my last question, just how to make this happen, it would be an administrative modification to the tip?
Based on the financial threshold, it's likely to be an amendment if we're gonna be adding, say, $1 million to the program.
Okay,
And we do have a planned amendment for a couple HSIP projects and other PM projects.
so just structurally, we would vote to add these projects, the policy board would approve that. And then a month or two later, we'd do an amendment of some sort to actually put the money there.
Yep.
Okay. I understand.
That's it. And John and his team are hoping for direction today on what to include in the plan set or not. So, this work can still be done behind the scenes and then while we, shore up the construction fund through a tip amount.
Yeah, and they're officially adding the new contingency projects and stuff on top too. We're aware of them and we've done very basic minimal work, just like, kind of scoping type work for them, but once they're officially in here, we can do more work.
Okay,
So,
yeah, go ahead, John.
one more question. The subcommittee that typically meets to review and recommend these projects, did they meet to go over these, kind of new contingency projects, or were they part of the last round?
No, I mean, all the subcommittee members are on the technical committee. So, there was no subcommittee meeting held for this. This proposal was done behind, behind the scenes between John and Tardis and myself.
Okay, I understood.
Any other questions? Yeah, go ahead, Bob.
There'd be more discussion later. And, the Chena River Walk, if the Chena River Walk construction slipped, or how that money would be spent.
Correct. So when we do a tip amendment, at that time, I'll need direction from DOT and the city as to whether or not that project will slip. Because we'll want that as part of the tip amendment to show the public that this is going out a year. And then at that time, with that amendment, the technical committee will be deciding what to utilize that funding on.
Thank you.
Yes, Jacob?
My question would be if the Chena River Walk stuff doesn't slip, how confident are we in our estimates? Just in construction, it seems like everything's much higher than estimates all the time. So if stuff all comes in high, what are we gonna do if we don't have that? Like something like another project needs a portion of that money. How would we accommodate that with adding this?
Yep, that's a good question. Well, that can always happen. I'm very confident in the 25 priorities right now. And for the last 6 or 8 projects, we've come within like 5% or less, usually 10 or less, within engineer's estimate on the fast improvement program, which I'm pretty proud of, and my designers are good. So we're hoping to keep that up, and if not, if the bids come in high, then we'll just have to deal with that then, I guess. But generally, we're very close. I am confident in 25, 26 and beyond, and the other contingencies are not as accurate at this time. But the 20, what you see in the red and 25 are way more accurate.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay, I'll open up this item for public comment. Is there any, we can provide public comment on this item here today before committee members make a motion? Not seeing any in the room. None online at this time. So we'll go ahead and close the public comment period. I will now entertain a motion from a committee member on this action item. Right, Ellen.
Yes, I maybe request, I'm just a little confused on exactly what the motion would be.
Yeah.
I think maybe it'd be appropriate if you make the motion.
Sure, sure. Make a motion.
Yes,
I make a motion for the technical committee to adopt the new project priorities as edited, read. And what else would I say? And to also increase the fast improvement program funding for 2025 to $2 million.
that's good. Okay. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Thanks, Bob.
Michelle, a second.
All right. Further discussion? Questions?
This is Michelle. Can I make a comment?
Yes, you may make a comment, Michelle. Go ahead.
Sorry, I can't see who's doing what. I apologize because I had to phone in today. I just wanted to thank everybody for their support on the pavement there at Tesoro Avenue. That is for our new transportation building. At first, we were only asking for that section, but really what happens is if there's something wrong with that section of road, we would have no way to get buses or van trans in and out of that facility. So by doing that whole loop, you're really ensuring that we're able to run our operation and serve the members of the Fairbanks North Star Borough. So I just wanted to encourage everybody that even though it is more money and it is a bigger project, it is a much better opportunity for all of us to provide that public transportation service here in Fairbanks. Thanks.
Thank you, Michelle. All right. Further discussion, debate, comments?
Yes, yeah.
Go ahead, John.
Yeah, just thanks everyone for putting up with all this. It's fun to manage and we get a lot of good stuff done and I appreciate being given the latitude to move things around slightly and then present it to you and getting concurrence later on. So I think we're making good work and then the next year's project is going to be a good one too. And I appreciate Bob Kristash and his team on their design efforts on the projects as well.
John. Okay, not seeing any other further discussion or debate. So I'll just ask, is there any member of the technical committee opposed to the motion? Hearing none, we'll consider it approved. That takes us to item 8C, election of chair and vice chair. This is on page 101 in the packet. For background, annually, both the technical committee and the policy board elect a chair and vice chair for the two bodies. At the technical committee level, currently I am serving as your chair and Corey is serving as vice chair. You can nominate individual to be chair and vice chair from amongst yourselves as committee members. You're also allowed to nominate Fast Pine staff to serve as chair or vice chair. In these capacities as chair and vice chair, if staff are selected as they've been the past few years, of course, we're not allowed to make motions nor vote on any of the motions that are made. But if you're a committee member and you become chair or vice chair, you wouldn't be able to make motions, but you would still be allowed to vote on those motions that were made. So this is an action item here. I'm gonna open up at this time nominations for chair, and then separately we'll open up nominations for vice chair. So are there any nominations for chair? John,
I nominate Jackson for chair.
okay? Are there any other nominations for chair? Okay, not hearing any other nominations for chair. Anyone opposed to me continuing to serve as chair into 2025? Okay. If you're not opposed, happy to serve as chair going into the next year. We'll now open it up for nominations for vice chair. Yeah,
Nominate Olivia for vice chair.
okay. Are there any other nominations for vice chair? Yes, Bob.
I nominate Corey for vice chair.
Arm wrestling.
Okay, we have two nominations on the table. One for Olivia, one for Corey. Are there any other nominations for vice chair? Great. How should we handle this one? How about we do for people in the room, we'll do raise of hands. We'll do it for staff member and then online. For technical committee members online, put your hand up. So the first nomination is for Olivia to serve as vice chair. So raise your hand if you'd like Olivia to serve as vice chair. Or I'm the online.
Or,
All right, so that's 8 votes for Olivia. How about Corey? I have 2 in person.
No.
All right, Olivia will be your vice chair. That's okay, we take turns. You were vice chair this year, Olivia will be vice chair next. Sounds good. All right, let's move on then to the Fast Planning 2025 meeting calendar. It's on page 102 of your packet. These are the proposed meeting dates for the Technical Committee, Policy Board, Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee, and Project Enhancement Committee. I think this page should say 2025 meeting dates. So I'll have to make that correction there. We did take a close look at this to avoid any holidays or being near a holiday, as well as we do have a couple planned conferences in the spring and in the fall where we adjusted specific meeting dates so that staff were present for those meetings. So we have taken a pretty hard look at these dates, and it's before you today for approval or any adjustments. Any questions? See no questions, any public comment on the meeting calendar today? Any at this point, or close the comment period? Now looking for a motion on approval of the meeting dates for 2025. I'll move to recommend approval. Okay, let's calendar a second. Walker, okay. All right, any proposed changes in the dates seen on the screen there? The technical committee is the first column, is probably the most important one to you. All right, not hearing any proposed changes. Anyone opposed to approval of the meeting calendar as presented in the packet? Okay, hearing none, we'll consider approved. And we'll move on to informational items, item 9A in the fall planning area. Boundary update. This one and the next informational items, were asked to be included on the agenda, I believe by Sean during our last meeting. For the Metropolitan Planning Area Boundary Update, we still do not have an approval from the Governor's Office on the boundary. What I've included in the packet is the date of our original submittal, which was December 21st, 2023. So you'll see that email submittal to DOT Northern Region to transmit this up to the Commissioner's Office, to the Governor's Office for signature. Page 104 is the cover letter that was included with the boundary that was approved by the Technical Committee and Policy Board, and the methodology report that went with it. What's kind of new information for the Technical Committee is what's included beginning on pages 105 through 108. This is a part of a letter that was written by DOT to the Federal Highway Administration, Federal Transit Administration, which has some references to the lack of approval for Metropolitan Planning Area boundary. It appears from this correspondence from DOT to our federal partners that the boundary is not being approved by DOT in hopes that they can advance the Richardson Highway flood control bridge replacement project out in North Pole, because that is outside of our current boundary, but within our new Metropolitan Planning Area boundary. So page 106, you can see some of the commentary on that. And then continues on page 107, and then also on page 108. And page 108 also alludes to the fact that we do need this boundary approved so that for the work on our next Metropolitan Transportation Plan update, which needs to include the newly served areas in the Metropolitan Planning Area boundary. And that DOT would like to see some edits to our operating agreement, and they would also want to have a legal description for the boundary that we provided, a written legal description. Looking back at the last two boundary updates that we've done, we've not provided a legal description for the boundary. Due to the regulation, which is shown on the bottom of page 110. A written legal description is not required for a boundary update. We can simply provide a GIS shapefile in our submittal to the state, which has already been provided to the state, as well as our federal partners. And so that is our intent. We're utilizing that option to just provide a GIS shapefile and not a written legal description. But DOT still wants a written legal description. They did prepare one for us, and it was not accurate. So that concludes my update with some new information from the Technical Committee on the boundary update. I don't know if anyone from DOT would like to speak to any other updates.
I guess I can. I don't have any more additional information other than what Jackson said, other than, I do have, there's a meeting, we'll be having with the Commissioner's Office, and there may be a proposal next month having to do with operating agreement and boundary update. So look for that potentially coming forward. And these similar questions are also being discussed with AMAS, the same operating agreement and boundary. And so there's other discussions afoot, and I don't have anything other to add to that at the time, but we should know more soon.
And Brett, Kellen, go ahead. Question, Brett, you help me out here. I guess what does the operating agreement have to do with the boundary update?
I don't know. These are questions I have as well, so hopefully we'll have more information for you.
Go ahead. Maybe a question for you, Jeff. Correct me if I'm wrong. we've done. Since I worked for Fast Planning, we've done 2 boundary updates.
Yes.
And we didn't update the operating agreement for either one of those.
No, they did not. The boundary and operating agreement are not tied to each other.
Okay,
An operating agreement explicitly states that the boundary can be updated at any time in mutual agreement with the MPO and government. So it can be done outside of the agreement. They're not linked to each other. There's nothing in regulation that I can see that links those two together. They're separate documents. Separate documents.
um. I guess back to DOT. Do you have any idea when we're gonna have an updated boundary or any?
No, I do not.
Okay.
I will ask. Commissioner.
Okay. One more question.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I did attend the policy board last month. And the board, I think unanimously expressed concern about, it was under the action item of the scope of the MTP update.
Yes.
And the board expressed concern about, you referred to it as the donut area.
Yep.
Maybe that's not the most descriptive term, but the area that Federal Highways tells us we have to include in the boundary, but it's not in an approved boundary yet. And the board unanimously requested DOT to pay for that.
Yes.
Have you received a response back from DOT on that request?
No.
Okay. Do you have any information on that, Brett?
No, I wasn't in on that. I was gonna answer that too.
Okay.
Right, well, I just want to know, was holding up the approval of the boundaries, the legal description?
In my communications with DOT, to get an approved boundary, they want to see edits made to the operating agreement.
Oh, that, okay.
And they want a legal description of the boundary, which is not required by the CFRs.
Rather than, because they can see what they, it's not required. Thanks. Right, Tom.
I don't know. Just, can you help me with some timelines here, Jackson? When was the last time we had to update the operating agreement?
When we switched our organizational structure from a hosted agency at the city to becoming a nonprofit independent organization. So that work began in May of 2018, and it took 1 year to complete the edits to that operating agreement. It was not approved until April of 2019.
Okay,
And that agreement is nearly identical to the new Matsu MPO agreement that was just signed less than a year ago, in December of 2023.
it took roughly a year to get that operating agreement updated.
11 plus months, yes. And it requires consultation with all municipal attorneys, state attorney. It's not something that's easily updated.
If the boundary is tied to the operating agreement, it could be another year before we have an approved boundary.
Correct.
Okay. And then, can I just make 2 comments?
Yes, it's just an informational item. There's no action on it here today, so it's open for discussion.
Could we keep this on, we have add this to our next, our December meeting agenda. I'm not trying to put pressure on you, Brad, maybe hoping for an update from your discussions. And then my second comment, I would really speak against developing a legal description. I don't know for what purpose it is. my department handles all the plating actions for the whole borough. And we have to develop legal descriptions for all the properties in the borough, et cetera. It's extremely difficult to develop legal descriptions, particularly of something this size. I can even think of just 3 zones I've done. There are 3 pages of legal descriptions. They really need to be done by a professional land surveyor. And then my final comment to that is, I think it's very dangerous to have a geographic shapefile, if you will, and a legal description. In my experience, especially when you're talking about something so large, there's gonna be a discrepancy between the two. I remember back in, must have been 2014, when we did that big boundary update. We very adamantly decided not to have a legal description because of those concerns I just expressed. And it was Federal Highways, I believe, that actually encouraged us not to have that because of those concerns that I talked about. So that's my 2 cents on it. You can take it or leave it. I think it's a good point of conversation.
Just count. All right, any further discussion? Questions? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to our next informational item, 9B, unobligated 2024 funding. This is also asked to be on the agenda for today's meeting at the request of Kellen, in hopes of hearing from DOT on what will happen with the projects that were not obligated last federal fiscal year. In particular, Cowell Street reconstruction. We had programmed in our TIP $500,000 for the next, to design the second phase of Cowell Street. That obligation did not occur on the DOT side prior to the end of the federal fiscal year. Also, there are a few other ones that show you here on pages 114 and 115. What you see on 114 and 115 is the updated obligation report for federal fiscal year 25, and then highlighted in yellow are the projects that either didn't get obligated, or there's some notes there that, you know, one project's going to end up being removed from the TIP since it was already constructed underneath separate programs. Other projects are being potentially delayed to 2026. But just to talk about the unprogrammed, the program funding that was not obligated by the end of the federal fiscal year, Cowell Street is on the first page. And then the second page, page 115 toward the top, I now have all the project details for our CMAQ projects and our carbon reduction program projects. So you can see that funding is not yet been obligated for the Borough Hybrid Fleet Vehicle Program, the motor vehicle plugins, the operations phase, and the sidewalk snow removal equipment. You can see that those were actually programmed in 2023 and 2024. And those have yet to be programmed. So DOT is aware of all of these projects and that need to be programmed. And our question from Fast Planning is, will these obligations be honored with previous year's money being carried forward? Or are we going to have to modify our TIP to make room for these, since the obligations have not yet occurred in the years that they were programmed? And that's, I think, all I can say about this at this time. But if Brett or Randy have any updates for us, that might be helpful.
Yeah, I was looking specifically at the Cowell Street carry forward, and we inquired up through headquarters, and we haven't heard anything back for sure. We're told that you know, traditionally these have been carried forward, so that hasn't really been an issue, but I don't have anything. So it's encouraging, but at the same time, we don't have anything in writing to make that a guarantee. So we need to, this can probably be added to the agenda for next month too. Same thing with the other one. So we'll try to get a better answer, but we've been checking on that, Randy and I, and haven't got a firm yes that we can, you know, have in writing, so. But it's our understanding that it should carry over.
Right, Colin.
First, I need to apologize because I brought up another project last month. I was under the impression that, I believe it was the Chi River Walk that didn't obligate. After the meeting, Yvette sent myself and Jackson an email showing that it actually did obligate. So I need to apologize for that one. That was not a concern. My concern also included Cowles though. And I appreciate what you just said, Brett. I guess my biggest concern was it wasn't even on our radar as a technical committee that there was chance of it not obligating. Before it was too late, essentially before it was October and the money had already been spent. So I really appreciate you working through and trying to carry the money forward. But my biggest question was, why were we in that situation anyways? Why didn't it obligate ahead of time, or why didn't it come back to this committee, put it on another project?
I think my understanding was that it was believed that it would obligate until it was too late. So,
Okay,
and I think it was, I'm trying to recall exactly, I think we had that one, it was, we had done a tip admin mod, but then then the price increase estimate was beyond what we fit in an admin mod, so then it became an amendment, and then that was a little bit delayed, and then I think we're still working through the air quality. Before maybe, is that sound about right, Jeff? And then by the time
For this particular obligation, my understanding from the email I received from Randy from DOT headquarters was it didn't obligate because there was an internal issue with the termini. This 500,000 for design was for the preliminary, well, for the engineering work on the First Avenue to Airport segment of Cal Street. So not what will be under construction this summer, but the next planned phase of the project. So my understanding was that this obligation was not sent to federal highways. It was withheld by headquarters due to a termite issue.
so I'll just say that that's kind of a big deal, in my opinion. Like, we have $500,000 that we had to spend, or we lost. And as of now, we've lost it. Yeah, I know, I understand there's a chance of getting it back, being able to re-obligate it on a previous year. I'm just trying to figure out where the disconnect was. I don't want to be in this situation again, that this federal money is so valuable for our community, for our transportation. We could have put this on any of the 15 projects John just brought us, but we didn't have time or know about it. So that's my question, is where's the disconnect, and how do we put guardrails in place to make sure we don't lose this federal money again? Does anyone have an answer for me?
I certainly don't. I mean, we do these monthly obligation reports to track all of our obligations. And if I hear from a DOT project manager that something may slip, then I immediately put that money on some other project. So that's the way the process has been working. We've never been in a situation where we closed out the total fiscal year and didn't spend all of our money. This is the first for organization.
fast, so we be down to spending to the penny, so. That's the way that reputation goes normally, so.
We were assured that these funds would be obligated, and then we found out after the federal fiscal year ended that they were not. So. And we're still waiting for confirmation that these funds will be honored in 2025 and not take away from our current program. But we don't have that confirmation yet from DOT.
We keep this as an agenda item for next month as well.
Yes.
That's my intention. I'm not trying to, well, I am a little bit trying to pick on this one issue. I really hope we get these monies carried forward, but longer term, let's talk about what the safeguards are. How do we not have this happen again? I don't know the answer to that because I'm not in it every day, but it's my goal as a technical committee member to bring as much federal funding to this area as we can. It's valuable. We fight hard to get this. Let's make sure we spend it. And as we saw today, we have a bunch of projects lined up that we can spend it on, we just need to know about it.
Okay, any other comments, discussion from committee members on this item? All right, well, the next item is federal fiscal year 2025 obligations and offsets. We just saw the first two pages of obligations, and then page 116 has offsets. The report at this time is that we're just over a month into the new federal fiscal year, and there have been no new 2025 obligations for our project at that time. So, but we have reformatted our reports in line with TIP administrative modification number 4 for federal fiscal year 2025. But at this time, there have been no obligations yet this year for our projects in the TIP, nor any offsets received. Let's see if anything occurs between now and next month. Any questions on obligations and offsets? Okay, hearing none. We don't have any other issues at this time, so I'll open it up for committee member comments. Yes, John.
We had a little open house for Holmes Road the other day, went well. Bunch of residents came in, other folks, and gave their comment. That's it.
Thanks, John. Yeah. Any other committee member comments? Nick Zarnecki, I see you got your hand up.
Yeah, thanks, Jackson. This is Nick Zarnicki with DEC Air Quality. I just wanted to let the technical committee know that we are getting very close to submission of the SIP amendments. And so barring any last minute changes, that should happen within this month.
Good update, Nick. Any other committee member comments? Or updates? Okay, hearing none, I'll now entertain a motion to adjourn. John, is there a second? Kellen? You want to vote? Okay, hearing none, we are adjourned at 1:27 p.m. That's everything. Yeah.